And I want to welcome all of you to the January luncheon for the Chamber. Happy New Year to all of you. I don't think it's too late yet to be saying that. We're not quite into the middle of January, so it's great to see all of you. I'm really, really delighted to see so many folks here to participate with our program today and hear from Congressman Diane Black. We are just thrilled to have her here with us, my great friend. But before we get started, as we do at every meeting, I want to invite Aaron Allison to come and give our prayer and pledge. And Aaron is with the Church at Indian Lake, I should have said. Thank you very much.
Would you please rise with me? Let's now pray. Father, we come before you and we thank you for this opportunity to gather and to fellowship and to enjoy this wonderful meal. We thank you for the leaders you placed in this community. And we do ask for your blessing to be on Hendersonville and Sumner County, on every business that's represented here, for every nonprofit, for every political office. Lord, we need your blessing and we call upon that. And we pray that you would just keep our community safe, be with our children and students and educators on this day and on every day. And it's in Christ Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Amen. Would you please join me and face the flag as we pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We are very, very blessed here in this community, absolutely. And one of the blessings we have is to have such great volunteer leadership for the Chamber. And one of those volunteers is the chair of the Chamber this year. Lynn Silverman is the owner of Huntington Learning Centers, and I'd like to invite him to come forward now to begin the program.
Hi, everybody. I guess I'd also like to wish everybody a happy New Year. Somebody told me as long as you still write 2012 with your checkbook, it's okay to say happy New Year. So I figure I'm going to go out in March. What I'd like to do first is introduce our new members. We have several new members this month, and I would encourage you to do business with them. First is Ely Engineering, Lynn Ely. Lynn Tharp and Associates, Leonard Tharp. Metis Technology, LLC, Rick Mitchell. State Representative Courtney Rogers, State Representative Terry Lynn Weaver, and Tribal Agent Success Incorporated, Penny Bruce. So please look for these folks and do business with them and do business here at Henderson. Also, I'd like to invite our elected officials to rise and introduce themselves. So if we have any elected officials here, maybe starting in this area of the room, you can stand and introduce yourself.
Frank Purdy, what you got on the Ed Mayberry, Gallup City Council.
Sir.
Darrell Woodcock, Alderman Ward 5. Anthony Holt, County Executive.
Missed anyone? Okay, thank you for being here today. Oh, yes. Mr. Mayor. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Charles Lee from Union University to come up and make a special presentation.
Thank you so much, Lynn. You know, it's one thing to conceive an idea. It's something much different to conceive an idea, to plan for the implementation of that idea, to see it implemented, and then to determine that the outcomes were a success. And that's exactly what's happened with the Leadership Academy that has been sponsored jointly by Sumner County Schools and Union University. The idea began with the Hendersonville Chamber Education Committee in 2008. And after 2 or 3 years of us working with that, it formed that was implemented this past year. In order to make that particular academy possible, which, by the way, had 80 applicants from Sumner County schools, 42 individuals that were accepted to the academy, 39 graduated from the academy. And in order to do that, we went out and asked for individuals and for businesses that might support this leadership academy concept. One of the first individual organizations that stood up and said, we want to be a part, was the Hendersonville Chamber Foundation. And so it is a pleasure for me, on behalf of the university and Sumner County Schools, to present to Lynn Silverman, as a member of the Chamber Foundation and president this year of the Chamber, this small token of our appreciation for the significant contributions that they have made to the schools of Sumner County and to the future of our community. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. We just can't say enough good things about having a university right here in our backyard. And I'm particularly familiar with the Leadership Academy that he's talking about. With what I do for a living every day, working with teachers, I know the teachers are the most important aspect of our school system, and this Leadership Academy is ensuring we have some of the best in the country. So thank you very much for your work. Okay, without any further ado, I had a lengthy introduction planned for today, but I was told, no, we can't do that. So I know that our congressman has an awful lot to talk to us about today, so without a lot of fanfare, I'd like to introduce Congressman Diane Black.
But the reason why I told Glenn that I did not want any lengthy introduction is I don't ask my family to introduce me when I walk in the room, and you all are family. So it's so great to be here with you. It's always good to be home, and in particularly be home here in Sumner County, which is Dave's and my home. So it's great to be with you. What an honor it is, first of all, I want to tell you to represent you in Congress. And although there are very frustrating times, I'll admit that. I think it would be foolish for me to stand here and tell you there are not frustrating times, but you know what? There are frustrating times in all of our work lives. It doesn't matter whether you are at a place that you really worked hard to be at and love being there 95% of the time, there's still going to be some frustration. And that is so in Congress. But what I wanted to do here today is to talk about that fiscal cliff that we all heard about over and over and over again for the last 4 or 5 months, to the point where I wanted to jump physically off of the cliff. It got to the point where I was just going to pull out my hair about this being talked about constantly. And then when the vote did occur, I've had people say to me, what was it really about, what's really in the bill, and why did you not support the bill? So I thought that's what I would cover today, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see coming up in the first couple of months of this upcoming year. And so here, I know it's going to be hard for you, some of you to see in the back, is just a slide, a very simple slide on what was good about the bill and what was bad about the bill. And whenever I look at a bill, because no bill is just perfect with everything in there that you like. There's always going to be some things that you think, well, I really don't like that. I wish it was changed a little bit, a little more of this, a little less of that. But you always have to weigh the good with the bad. And honestly, in Congress, this is something that really is intentionally done. I believe that most of the bills that we get that are the big issue bills, they're going to put good and bad in there, and they want to do that because there are some things they want to slip in there, and they know that you're probably going to vote for that because it has mostly good things in it, even though there may be something in there that you don't necessarily like all the way. And that's the way with this bill. There was some good and bad, but when I weighed it, I did not feel that the good outweighed the bad. So let's first of all talk about the good part of it, and then I'll talk about what was in it that I felt should have been more of, and I just couldn't support it because of that. First of all, we know that the Bush tax cuts, which are typically called the Bush tax cuts, the 2001, 2003 cuts were temporary, and they have been temporary since that period of time. And depending upon Congress, they may have extended those cuts for a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year period, but they would continue to come up and need to be extended. Since they were put in place, many in Congress felt that they needed to be made permanent. And even when there was a time where the Republicans, who this was a Republican measure, had both the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they were not able to make them permanent. And so there has been an effort for a number of years to say these need to be made permanent. Well, back in 2010, when there was a lame duck session, Congress and the President Obama, determined that the economy was so bad it was not the time to raise taxes on anyone. And the President said, let's not raise any taxes on anyone back in 2010 because of the economy. At this point in time, his argument was he wanted to raise taxes. And so one of the good things in this bill was that the taxes were made permanent for those who are at the 10% level, the 25% level, the 28% level, and the 33% level. For those who make $400,000 as individuals or $450,000 as families, the taxes go up and they go from 35% to 39.6%. So for those who are above that income level, their taxes did go up, but the permanency was made for these other income levels below that. That was a good thing that we did get some permanency there. The other thing that was really concerning is something called the alternative minimum tax, which was put in a number of years ago because it was felt that people at a higher income level would have enough deductions that they would continue to have those deductions where they didn't pay anything. So they picked an income level and said, if you make $45,000, there would be a minimum amount, no matter how many deductions you had, there would be a minimum amount of taxes that you would have to pay. And over the years, they did not index that. So that number now, as a result of not indexing that, meant that people at an income level that was really what we would call a middle income level were having to pay extraordinary taxes. And they kept patching it. So you might have heard about an AMT patch. And the patch was an indexing. And so what they did was they made this permanent and they indexed it so that middle income people would not get caught in this AMT expiration. Had that happened, people at $45,000 a year, individuals at $45,000 a year would have seen a very large increase in their taxes, probably of about $4,000 for a year. And that would have been a really big hit for middle-income families. And so the patch that they put on there was a permanent patch, which will now index that, and it won't catch people at that middle income. So those are good things about the bill, and that permanency was a good thing. I'm going to get just a little wonky right here and talk about why, for me, as a member of Ways and Means, and being a part of the discussion for the last 2 years about doing some reform to our tax code, this was very important in making these permanent. Because when we try to reform the tax code, and we want something that's fairer, flatter, and simpler, 47% of the American people do not pay anything. We really feel that everybody needs to have some skin in the game. And so our plan would have reduced rates. It would have taken all of these rates and brought them down for everyone, all the way across the line, brought them down to 10% at a minimum and 25% at a maximum. So it would have compressed these brackets down. We would remove a lot of the exemptions and the deductions and make it cleaner and fairer, and have something that was really pro-growth, which would actually produce more revenue. Why is that? Because the hard-working taxpayer would keep more of those taxes in their pocket. When you have more taxes in your pocket, more money in your pocket, for not having to pay high taxes, what do you do with that money that's in your pocket? You spend more. And as you spend more, it generates more jobs and generates more revenue. So pro-growth tax reform really actually brings in more revenue, but it doesn't do it by directly going to the taxpayer and taking more out of their pocket, as this bill did. And so for us, having having permanency in the tax code is important because when the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, when they do their numbers to tell us as we do pro-growth tax reform how much money we have to consistently bring in, what they're using is they're using the old numbers, the numbers that were prior to 2003. And it makes it harder to compress the brackets down and to take those deductions out of there when you have that higher number. So this is really, these things were a good thing. Now, let me go back and set the stage just a little bit for you to understand why we were there at midnight on New Year's Eve. Because I think sometimes the message doesn't get out through the major media about what really is done. It's a positive thing. Back in August, the House passed a bill called H.R. 8, which was the foundation of this bill. We passed it in August, and what that bill said is that we were going to extend the tax rates for everyone, and then come back in 2013 and do pro-growth tax reform. Because as the President said back in 2010, when the economy is bad, taxes don't need to go up on anyone. No one. Let's put some certainty in both individuals and also in businesses, and let's not raise taxes on anyone. Let's do true pro-growth tax reform. That was in August that we sent them this bill. So that's August, September, October, November, December, that the Senate had this bill laying on their desk. And they did nothing, which is very frustrating because we didn't want to be there at the 11th hour with a large bill and making these decisions on some very complex issues, and yet that's what the Senate did. Now, also in the Constitution, you all may know this, but a revenue bill has to begin in the House. It cannot begin in the Senate. So anything that has to do with revenue, either increasing revenue or decreasing revenue, has to begin as a House measure. And the bill that they were working off of was our bill, H.R. 8, that would have extended the tax cuts for everyone, all categories. And they didn't do anything with it for 5 months. And on December the 30th, I got called and said, come back, because we are going to be working on this on December the 30th, the 31st, and January the 1st. Very, very frustrating. We received a bill on January the 1st after the Senate had passed that bill on December the 31st. Actually, it was January the 1st at 2 o'clock in the morning. The senators actually had the bill in their hand for 10 minutes before they voted on it. And I've got to tell you, there's no way you can read a bill of that many pages with this complexity in 10 minutes and vote on it. And then it got sent back to the House. So on New Year's Day, we were sitting in the House trying to figure out what did this bill say. Now here's why I didn't vote for it, because here's the bad. The bad is it did nothing to cut our spending or to reform the greatest driver of our debt, and that's our entitlement spending. And you just cannot keep kicking this can down the road. So what you've done here is you've brought in additional revenue, but you've done nothing to cut the spending. We have a spending-driven crisis in this nation. $1 trillion in debt every year in deficit spending. During the election, our president said that he was committed to making sure that we got our spending under control. Now, that is not getting the spending under control when you raise more revenue, but you don't do anything to cut on the other side. And the problem, even with the revenue that is raised, if it took care of the problem completely, you may have a good argument. But do you know how many days this is actually going to fund the government for? It's going to fund the government for less than a month, what was raised. So the issue of the out-of-control spending is still there. And I did not feel comfortable with voting for a bill that did not do both things. So I did not vote for this bill. So let's see what else it had in here. It had some special interest carve-outs in here for special interest groups such as NASCAR and film directors. I'm not for that. I'm for making a code that is fairer, flatter, and simpler. not giving more special interest deductions to places like NASCAR and Hollywood that don't need these. Because if we're talking about revenue, then we shouldn't be giving special interest. That's the part of the program tax reform, is to get all that special interest stuff out of there. That crony capitalism. All this did was add to it. I can't vote for something that adds to it. As it says up here, House Republicans introduced and passed a bill last August to enact income tax rates for all Americans, and the Democrat-controlled Senate would not take it up, and we got what we got. So let's go on to take a look at what we must do to move forward. First of all, we have to address our fiscal problem and our federal deficit. And we cannot do it unless we put on the table the true driver of our debt. I don't have a slide up here to show you this, but usually when I do town halls, I put this slide up. And the truth of the matter is only one third of government spending is for things such as roads and education, commerce. Only 1/3 of that spending is underneath of discretionary spending. 2/3 of our spending is taken up by entitlement programs, such as Social Security, Medicare. Also paying interest on our national debt. We're $16 trillion in debt, and some of that debt is owed to countries like China and the Middle East, people that we don't necessarily have the same values. And then finally, other kinds of entitlement programs outside of Social Security, Medicare, and that is things like food stamps and housing and those kinds of things. That's 2/3 of our budget. And when we figure our budget each year, and we put this budget out, it's only on that 1/3, because that's really all we have control over. Those other 2/3 are written into law. And I can't change it by the budget. The only way I can change those programs and the amount of spending is by changing the law. And so Medicare reform is very, very important. And you'd say, and folks say to me that are on Medicare, Diane, I'm so afraid of what you're going to do to us. Well, our plan did not touch those that are currently on Medicare. But for those who are in the future coming into Medicare, we're going to save it for them. Because Medicare goes broke if we don't do anything. If we just sit back and let this go, Medicare is going to go broke in 10 years. That means the people that are on Medicare will have nothing, and those of you who will be younger, I'm 62 this year, Dave's 65, so we're at that age where we're becoming on Medicare. So for those who are in Medicare or near Medicare, coming into Medicare, there will be nothing. And for you that are younger, you'll never see a dime. You won't see anything. There'll be nothing there for you. So kicking the can down the road doesn't help anyone. We have got to address, and I know it's awfully hard to do, it's awfully hard to address something that people believe you're going to take something from them. Our plan did not take anything from anybody 55 and older. It would have allowed you to be able to continue on the program just as it is. But for those who are 55 and younger, it would have been a premium support program, much as what you do with your employers, where you put a certain amount of premium in. And the government, for those who are unable, would have all of their premium paid, or for those who have less, we would pay the greater percentage of their premiums. But everybody would probably have some premium paid. It's a guaranteed program where you can't be turned away. You can't be dropped off of the program because of your health needs. And that really would help to reform it and bring it back into some fiscal solvency. Now, why is Medicare a problem for us? And I'm going to just talk a little bit about this, and I'm going to open it up for questions. But here's the problem. Back in 1965, when Medicare was originally put into place, for every one beneficiary, there were 9 workers putting into the program. The average life expectancy back then was 67 years old. Now, for every beneficiary who is taking out of the program, there are only 3 workers. 3 workers putting in rather than 9. Average life expectancy for males is in the upper 70s. For women, it's in the lower 80s. So we're living a lot longer. How many times you open up the newspaper a day and find people that are having their 100th birthday? And then how many people are coming onto the program? You know, us baby boomers are retiring, at 10,000 a day. 10,000 baby boomers are coming into the Medicare program a day. So it's unsustainable in its current form, and we must reform it in order to really get our fiscal order taken care of. I hope that we're going to have an opportunity to be able to do pro-growth tax reform. I do believe that is the answer to being able to stimulate the economy, allowing the hardworking taxpayer to keep that money in their pocket, and to be able to get us back into a situation where we can once again balance our budgets. So why don't I do this? Why don't I, let's see, do I have anything else in here? Debt continues to grow at 16 trillion. Here's the other thing that's a little secret that you may not know. Some of you may know this. We keep talking about $16 trillion in debt. That's the one you know about. You know our unfunded liability in Medicare, Social Security, and the federal benefits, federal workers benefit program. The unfunded liability in that is $86 trillion. Yes, I said a T. $86 trillion in unfunded liabilities. So we are just under $100 trillion in debt in this country. They can't keep going there. We have got to get serious about getting this under control. I have my voting card in my purse, and I often show this to people, but on the back of my voting card I have a picture of our 6 grandchildren, and it's taped to the card. And sometimes people will say, oh, you're voting with the wrong card, and then they see that on the front is the real card, but on the back is the grandchildren. When I make a decision, as I put that voting card into the little slot for my vote, I ask myself, is this good for America's future, and in particular my 6 grandchildren? And we have got to face the music. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. So what can I answer? Questions. Open to questions. Lynn.
Again, thanks for coming today.
You're welcome.
I started out in a good mood. I'm not.
Yeah, I put you in a really bad mood. I'm glad you ate before I started talking, or you wouldn't have an appetite.
You know, I try very hard to understand both sides of any issue. And on this one, I got to say I'm stymied. I'm not a math whiz by any stretch, but listening to the points that you're making, I completely understand where you're coming from. What I can't wrap my head around is when I listen to the president talk, when I listen to Nancy Pelosi talk about the notion of increasing the revenue, where's the math in that? I haven't seen them, and I've looked at the president's budget, I haven't seen where they've shown that that increase in the revenue does more than what you suggested, which is to pay for the government for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Are you aware of anything that's going on behind the scenes that's part of this grand plan that we don't really understand today?
Lynn is asking how does the math show it, and how do those who think we can keep kicking the can down the road think that that's mathematically possible. And listen, Lynn, I got to tell you, I'm as stymied as you are about that. And I can just see it so clearly, because if I had all of you in a room and we sat down and actually put this on paper and you look at it, it would be so clear to you that you couldn't possibly say that you don't have to do something actuarially to make this happen, so we get out of this deficit spending, this continue to grow our debt. And yet, the folks on the other side, Nancy Pelosi and the president as well, say they're not finished. They're going back again for more taxes from the American people. You cannot tax your way out of this problem. It is a spending issue. It's a spending-driven crisis. And I can give you more money, but if all you're doing is you're going to give more breaks to people like NASCAR and the filmmakers, you're not helping the problem at all. And that's, again, what that bill did, is it kicked the can down the road and added even more cost to what we already have. Here is one statistic that was just amazing to me. When we talk about Medicare, and what it would take for you as an individual to be able to have enough money in there for yourself at the current way in which Medicare is set up, you can actually take your entire salary for an entire year, you could sell your house, and you could give it to the government, and it still would not take care of your Medicare expenses that you're going to have in your lifetime. It's pretty incredible. And I just don't understand how you can't see that that is hurting us, because we're going to go over this cliff. Now, if we're not going over this cliff now, we're going to go over this cliff. Here's the other interesting thing. is if you look back at history, and let's go back 50 years, and say, what is the average intake of revenue for the federal government, and what is the average spending for the federal government over a 50-year period? The average income or revenue is about 18% of GDP. The average spending, government spending, is somewhere between 18 and 20%. And if you go back and look at it, you will also see that we have a terrible habit in the federal government spending more even in good years of good revenue. We'll tend to get 18% in and we'll spend 19%. We'll get 19% in and we'll spend 20%. We have a terrible habit of that. Some people get into that in their businesses and in their households too, and the federal government has a terrible habit of that. But right now, we are almost at historical average of GDP revenue. We're about 18%, we're like 17.8%. So we're just about there. What we're seeing is not taking care of the problem, because let's look at the other side. Where are we in spending? We're at 25% of the GDP in our spending. So we're bringing in what would be historically average, but you can't do it because you can't raise the taxes to spend at the 25% of GDP. And that's what the federal government is doing right now. So you've got to face the issue that it's a spending-driven crisis. You know, we had 9/11. We didn't expect 9/11. That's a crisis we didn't know about. It's hard to prepare when you don't know about it. But what a shame it is when you know about it. And you absolutely have the numbers and the information in front of you, and you still don't do anything about it. And I don't tell you, I can't sit on a porch with my grandchildren when they are 18, 19, 20 years old and they say, Mimi, why didn't you do something about it? Because now, when a baby is born today, the day they're born, they owe $50,000 in their share of debt to this country. And I say, shame on us. Shame on us baby boomers that can't get our act together, that we're willing to put that on a credit card for our future generations, where they won't know the same lifestyles we do. You know, they're going to be in debt, they're going to have to pay much higher taxes because there's no other way to get around it. And then you have to question, how long can we go that way till we get to a place like Greece, where we actually fall off the cliff? So for me, you're going to fall off the cliff. You talk about the fiscal cliff today and, oh, we have to divert it and the whole bit. And by the way, the sequester was the other problem. You know, we did the sequester. We said we're going to cut $1.2 trillion and we raised the debt ceiling by $1 trillion. We said we're going to cut $1.2 trillion. Now they have postponed doing the sequestration. Now we had a bill to avert it, not to postpone it, but to be able to find other ways through waste and duplications and so on to take care of it so we didn't cut our military. But look, now they've postponed it for another 2 months. Again, you kick the can down the road. That decision's already been made. Those were cuts that we put into place and we all agreed on. It was law. And to postpone it in this bill, it's not right. It is just not right. And we're not even talking about Obamacare. Because how many, well, I won't ask that question. All of you who make $200,000, get ready because you're going to get hit with a surtax in Obamacare. You may not be going up here in your income tax, but you have a 1% Medicare surtax that you're going to pay if you're $200,000 individual income. And in addition to that, you will also have another 3.6% in another part of Obamacare to help pay for Obamacare. So your taxes are going to go up about 4%, but it's hidden here because they're saying, well, that's not part of the income tax, but that's part of the surtax that's been put on by Obamacare, so your taxes are going up. And these are the sleight of hand kinds of things that disappoint me. Because I want to be really honest with the American people. I want to be able to say, here's what we are doing, here's what we're not doing. You have all these hidden taxes here and there. People don't realize that until it hits them. But we haven't even talked about Obamacare and what that's going to do for the middle income, because we now know the studies are showing us that it's going to be really difficult for those in the middle income to get insurance, health insurance, as a result of this bill. It's really going to affect them. Others?
We talked a lot about the problem. What is the path out?
Okay.
As we
Well, the president, when he campaigned, did say he was willing to fix our spending-driven crisis, and that for every $1 that we raised in the debt ceiling, that he was willing to cut 3. We're not hearing that right now. He's changed that tune, unfortunately. It's very discouraging for me that that's the tune that we're having right now. So it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a large fight, because there are people like myself who are just absolutely refusing to do anything to raise a debt ceiling until you can show me that you're going to really cut the spending. And that's going to be, the next 2 months is going to be our big fight. Now, what's the solution to that, Charles? Because I hate to bring you all bad news and say there's absolutely no solution and wring my hands and say I may as well just come home and dig a hole or whatever. There is a solution. We had a solution in the budget that we passed for the last 2 years. And the House is going to come back and pass another budget. I sit on the Budget Committee. Prior to us passing a budget the last 2 years, a budget had not been passed by this Congress. And still, we have not passed the budget. But we did our work in the House. And we're going to do our work again this year. We're going to have a budget by April 15th. We have what we call the path to prosperity. It did not balance the budget for about 7.5 years. But that's, you know, unless you do something really, really deep and really hard to Medicare, which I don't think is fair to the people that we had promised we would take care of. I don't think that's fair. But what it did is it started bending that cost curve, and it brought that cost curve down to the point where you finally did balance the budget. So we have a plan out there. We're probably going to bring something similar to that back again. We're hoping that maybe the Senate will really address this straightforward and in some way at least take part of what we send them, because we have a way to bend that cost curve and bring it down. And still make sure that people get the kind of care that they need. Others. I don't know, Lan, am I done? I'm happy to stand here and answer questions for you. I know I have a few other notes on here since I don't see another question out there, but I think there may be a couple of things we didn't have on the slide here about what this did. The estate taxes, I know people were very concerned about estate taxes. There's good and bad in that. Currently, under the cuts, the estate tax was 35%. It did raise it to 40%, but it did maintain the $5 million level. So anything over $5 million will be taxed at 40%. So they go up by 5%, but they were talking about lowering that to $1 million. And who does this really affect? This really affects the farmers. You know, these family farms that when they're a 100-year farm and they keep them in the family, and then the family decides not to farm any longer, and those farms have just risen to a real high value. And to keep those farms when parents die, it really is very difficult for them to find the money to pay for that. Now, let me just go on record here and tell you, I think the estate tax is one of the most immoral taxes that we tax in this country. Because you've already paid money, taxes on that money that you earn. And you probably pay 2 or 3 times on that money as it goes through the years. Whether it's taxes on your house, taxes on your mortgage, taxes on all kinds of things. And then when you pass away, the federal government has a right to come in and take 40% of it right off the top. How is that right? I mean, I think that is one of the most immoral taxes there is. I'd love to just get rid of it altogether. And I know they're working on doing that here at the state level, and I commend the governor on that. I think it's just terrible. I gotta tell you, it's really funny. We were talking about this around the kitchen table, and I have an 11-year-old grandson who's very smart. And sometimes you think he's not listening, and he is listening. So we're all sitting around the table arguing about this. I have some very liberal children, by the way. And we get into some really good heated arguments, which is great because we all hug each other afterwards. But my grandson, who's 11 years old, comes up to me after we had these discussions, and he goes, Mimi, are you telling me that when you die and you leave your money to me, that the federal government is going to take 45% of my money? And I said, yes, sir, because that is wrong. I said, well, hallelujah, the 11-year-old has more sense than some others do. Capital gains for those who are over $400,000 will go from 15% to 20%. on both their capital gains and their dividends. So for those who are investing, on your dividends, it is going to rise. The marriage penalty is back. You know, the marriage penalty was taken out during those Bush era tax cuts, but the marriage penalty is back, which is very disappointing and is not a good thing. Also, for those of you, because you know they talk about $400,000, but for those who make $200,000 or $250,000 as an individual, there's one other piece in here that's going to get you. They phase out your itemized deductions. So your itemized deductions will only go to a certain point and you'll be cut off. You won't be able to take all those itemized deductions. You'll have a certain ceiling on that. And as well, they're going to phase out your personal exemptions at $250,000. So for those that were saying, hey, get those over there, but don't get these over here, start at $400,000, there was a lot of things in here that do change for those who are under that $400,000. And by the way, I asked in committee, in my budget committee, I asked when they were talking about the wealthy and those paying their fair share, there were two questions I asked. What's someone's fair share? What can we say, what can we determine as just reasonable people that we think is a fair share that the government should take from anybody at any level? When I ask this at town hall meetings, the average is 20%. People think the fair share that the government should take from me is about 20%, no matter how much I earn. Well, you can see that the fair share is being defined differently, depending upon your income level, and there's a lot of other things being put in there. But the second thing is, how do you define wealthy? I mean, I think that's a really good question. The president during the campaign was saying wealthy was 1 million and up. So millionaires and billionaires. And then his proposal was to raise taxes on those that make $200,000 or a family with $250,000. So there's no definition to wealthy because wealthy is different depending upon where you live. I guarantee you people in New York, California, Chicago, New Jersey were not thinking that $200,000 was wealthy. We were just recently in New York and it was $30 for a pot of coffee in New York. $200,000 is middle income. So the definition of wealthy is really all over the place. The definition of fair share is all over the place. And we don't have anything written in our code to determine and make that definition a permanent definition. So I'm going to end this by asking, does anyone know in here when the federal income tax began? Yeah.
1930.
1913. And prior to that, when would they put a tax on the most wealthy in this country? What was that first tax where they said the most wealthy in this country would help us with what? Civil War. It was to pay for the Civil War. And it was the most wealthy were considered the top 0.5%. And then in the 1900s, they decided that they were going to put this tax on. And what did it start out, Barry? What was the income level? Do you remember? Yeah, I'm going to misquote that, and I know I've got a TV station, so I want to be careful here because it was a really high income. It was what then was considered the very wealthy. And where are we today? So my fear is that the taxes were made permanent for those at the $400,000 and up. But where does that go in the future? Because nothing in that law is permanent that can be changed. And this is my fear, is that they're going to continue to just bring that down and bring that down and raise the taxes and raise the taxes, saying that the raising the taxes is going to take care of the problem. You cannot take care of the problem by raising taxes. You can't raise taxes fast enough or high enough to take care of a spending-driven crisis. So my job, when I go back to Congress, is to go back there and protect the hard-working taxpayer. It's a privilege to represent you in Congress, and my office is always open to hear from you. I have Teresa Koberline here with me today. She's my district director. Many of you know her. We have an office right here at Taj Mahal, and I want to thank Anthony and the County Commission for allowing us to be there at that building because it's a great space to be in so that people know where we are and it's easily accessible. Our office is there. We're there to assist you with questions or whatever services that we can help you with being within the law. So thank you so much for having me here today.
it worked out timing-wise for you to be able to talk to us. I know it's a very busy time. It's good to know that we're represented so well, so thank you. Okay, just finishing up with some housekeeping items. Hopefully you all had a chance to go to our sponsor display tables today. I'd like to invite our display tables to come up and introduce themselves and talk for a minute or two about their businesses.
Hi, I'm Therese Kassler. I'm working with Kevin Gillingham at Safe Harbor Insurance. We're an independent agency here in Hendersonville, been here for 20-some years on Sanders Ferry Road. Being an independent agency means we have a variety of companies that we can use to sit down and chat with you and see what your needs are and find what best fits for you. So if you're going to be, Diane, I didn't know you were going to be here today when I signed up, but if you're turning 65 and are considering a Medicare supplement policy, a Medigap policy, or if your parents, mom or dad's on an Advantage plan and you didn't know about all those cost sharings when you get the bill from the hospital, Regina. Or if you are thinking about maybe final expense and want a little term policy, or I challenge everybody to think about this. When it's time for things changing for you, have you thought about who's going to be your caregiver and how you're going to pay for that? I know a lot of you in this room know my kids, and I don't want them taking care of me. So, really, yeah, some of them can't take care of themselves. But anyway, there is long-term care insurance that can take care of that. And here in the state of Tennessee, we have the partnership program for that asset disregard. Or also, there's a life insurance policy. Maybe we'll do something like that with a long-term rider on there, so you can protect some assets that way as well. So anyway, but think about us. We're here in town, and I'm going to draw for this lantern over there. And Mr. Slater with the Hendersonville Christian Academy.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Hendersonville Community Pastors Association. I'm the president of that association, and we're proud to be a member of the chamber. And last year, we started an event on the Sunday before Martin Luther King Day. And Sunday evening is an interdenominational service that's recognizing MLK Day. Now, to our knowledge, there has not been an event like this in Hendersonville. Gallatin has a representation, and we actually have some information about some of their activity at the display. And Nashville has several different recognitions, but we don't know that the city of Hendersonville has had this up until last year. And we had a wonderful event, an interfaith representation. And the reason why we gather is not to honor a man, but to honor a movement. The civil rights movement started within congregations and churches and partnered with businesses in the community. And it makes a statement that we believe in racial equality and racial unity. So I want to personally invite you to attend. You guys are high caliber leaders, and you may think, well, I'm not part of the programming, but sometimes just your simple presence at an event makes a statement because people know who you are. We'll also have available for you to take as many as you would like of these little cards that you might be able to display at your place of business, and we also have a handful of posters. Again, this event is on Monday, January the 20th. It'll be at the Community Church on on Main Street in Hendersonville. The service starts at 7, but from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we'll have refreshments. And so I hope to see you there, and I think it's going to be a wonderful way our community can celebrate racial diversity and inclusivism, and I hope you're a part of it, and we look to see you there. We, as a Community Pastors Association, want to be partners with you on this event. And we have available for you a book of Reverend King's writings and speeches, and a $40 gift certificate to the Black Eyed Pea. And that goes to Nancy Myers of First State Bank. Where are you, Nancy? Is there anyone else?
Thank you. I'm Ricky Perry, good pastor at Christian School, and it's a blessing to get to be with you. I really appreciate Congresswoman Black being with us. Obviously, because our school is a private Christian school, the hard-earned money and the taxes that our folks pay, whether they're in Sumner County or any of the other 7 counties that we draw from, it's very important because our parents want that opportunity for their kids to be exposed to a Christian environment and to be able to have all the things academically that will help them as we start pre-K, 3-year-old up through high school. We're excited. Ted Bloodworth is here with me today. We're actually going to be launching our I-Level initiative, which is an iPad initiative that we'll issue to all of our 9 through 12 students next year. And that'll be things that will follow those students as many of them go on to college. We also have several carts throughout the school that will prepare our students for the technology that's changing so rapidly in their lives. And I'm just amazed. I was in school at the elementary level many years ago, and to see how textbooks and to see how information is transferred. Used to be the teacher was the expert, now the teacher is the facilitator, and is allowing these children to discover in their own ways how to learn, how to best equip themselves. So we're very excited about the things happening in Good Pasture Christian School. Saw a couple of our parents, Chuck and Susan, and several of our alumni are here this afternoon. We just appreciate getting to be with you. If you have any questions about our school from an admissions standpoint, then Ted's the person to see. There is a card on your table that talks about some upcoming open houses. I'd like for you to take those. If you worship with folks or if you have events with folks that might have an interest in a Christian education for their student. We're the largest pre-K through 12 in North Nashville and all the northern surrounding counties. And it allows us to have a tremendous width and breadth of program from all kinds of different activities. So we're glad to be here today. We're going to draw for a goodie bag that Ted's brought with us. And I won't look, so I won't be cheating here. And I believe this is Matt Lawson. Matt, you still here? Very good. Congratulations, Matt.
Good afternoon, Chamber members. My name is Joseph Charqua, and I'm with Lexus of Nashville. We do have 2 dealerships in town, one in Brentwood and one in Madison. Fortunately, I'm at the one nearest to my home, which is Madison. Now, before the Congresswoman spoke, like Mr. Silverman, I was feeling good about my life. Now, I am depressed. And when I get depressed, I like to spend money. So I would recommend, I want to open up our business. We are open till 7 and 6 on Saturday. We close on Sunday. Now, they said I had 1 minute, so I'm just going to get on with it. The best way we feel to drive a car, or to own a car, is to drive one. So I was asked a number of times when I came in, are you giving away a Lexus? Are you giving away a Lexus? We are. For one day. So the way this works, someone in here will become a Lexus owner for a day. It's in the basket. The only thing I ask is that you contact me when you are ready to drive. We've already done this once. I would like to do it every month with the chamber. I love the city of Hendersonville. I've been there for 13 years. And this is probably one of the most welcoming places I've ever been. So, without further ado, Nancy Myers.
Nancy, I think you're one of the luckiest people in this room today. I'm thrilled to death about that. Justin, thank you very much. And all of our display tables, we really appreciate their support. I'm going to run through a few announcements in rapid fire if you all will give me your attention for just a couple more minutes. Our connection opportunities this month, we have a Leads Exchange meeting every Wednesday at noon at the Chamber office. Our business after hours is on January the 17th with Sumner Bank and Trust from 5 to 7. Is that 17th is the right date? Yeah, that's the right date. I wrote something else down earlier. Our February luncheon, we're going to have Jennifer Brown from the Sumner County School Systems to come and talk to us about Sumner County's recent accountability results and how the system plans on moving forward. And then we have some promotion opportunities. Cassie's responsible for almost all of these. Our business showcase is coming up on February the 21st. That's where the 21st comes in. Here at Bluegrass Country Club, Good Pasture Christian Academy is our title sponsor for that event. Our Middle Tennessee Home Show is going to be March through the 17th at the Expo Center, and Sumner Roofing and Exteriors is our title sponsor for that. Want you to save the date for our 23rd annual golf tournament here at Bluegrass, and that's on April the 22nd. So on April the 22nd, our 23rd Golf Classic is coming up. United Chambers Luncheon is in April this year, so keep tuned for that date. And then I want to let you know that in our advocacy area, our HERE group, which is our manufacturing, distribution, warehousing group of folks, are meeting on January the 16th. So as I get ready to close out, I'd like to ask all veterans who might be with us to please stand so that we can recognize you in the room. Thank you so very much.